So every year I like to do like a my current home theater like update video, and this year I don't really have a lot to talk about other than one thing. I guess this year the only thing that I've really done to this room was add the Emotiva 7-channel amplifier. Have a couple of videos on that already if you're interested in checking that out. I go into pretty good detail on how to set it up. What are my thoughts on it? Was it worth it? I'll put a link in the description and you'll see a card up there. I guess in this video, since I really don't have a lot of things to update, I want to talk about if I could turn back time. What would I have done differently in this room? I thought about 5 different things that I would have done differently if I could have started this room knowing what I know now. First one is pretty simple. I would have started with this room is pretty light. I went with kind of aesthetics first and like performance second. I probably would have chosen a darker paint color in this room. Maybe in addition to that, or like a much darker, maybe like a light gray, like a dark gray kind of color, like charcoal or something really dark to help improve with reflections off the wall to help with my projector performance. In addition to that, I probably would have changed the color. You know, obviously like like beige colored acoustic panels wouldn't have worked very well, so I probably would have chosen a different fabric color for those. So just to darken things up, improve black levels a little, increase like decrease reflections onto the screen, because the light that's shining off of the screen kind of reflects back onto it, lowering the black levels on your screen. You know, that's something I kind of learned a little later in the game. And again, you live and you learn. Yeah, I went into this not knowing everything, and I've learned throughout I think I've had this theater since the very beginning. I've been working on it for 8 years, so I've learned a lot of different things, and that's one thing probably the first thing I would have changed, probably the easiest thing to implement. Keep your room dark, the colors in your room dark. So the second thing I would have done differently is I probably would have done the acoustic panels earlier in the build, I guess, because I had bare walls for a while, and after installing them, they actually did, you know, I did notice a rather substantial difference in like the performance of the room. But in addition to that, I probably would have implemented some kind of diffusion into this, because now all I pretty much have right now is absorption and bass traps. I mean, the only diffusion that I have in here would be like the chairs and, you know, any other random object in this room that's diffusing sound, naturally. But I would have probably had some kind of diffusion installed instead of just doing nothing but absorption. So I'm probably going to try to implement that in my new home theater when the time comes to start buying and preparing for that stage of the build. So yeah, some absorption and diffusion combination. It was something I would have considered getting. So when I built this home theater, there was no Atmos. You know, hindsight is 2020. It's really hard to see where things are going. You know, when I built this theater, I think I hadn't really heard about Dolby Atmos, and maybe there was some form of Dolby Atmos, but it was just in theaters and really hadn't hit like the home theater market. There wasn't really in any receivers, and if it was a handful, and I really didn't think it was a big deal at the time. So, but I did install some height channels in this theater to use Dolby PL2Z. It was Dolby Pro Logic PL2Z or something like that. It was a really weird name. Dolby Atmos rolls off the tongue a lot easier than that. By the way, that was not very effective. There were times when I'd put my ear straight up at the height speaker and it couldn't hear anything. You'd hear some weird echoing sounds. Not very effective at all. It was a pretty bad format for Dolby. With the original receiver I had, you could either go for you could do those heights or wides. This room wouldn't accommodate wides, so I went with the heights. And in the long run, I think it worked out better because I'm still using the same height channels in my Dolby Atmos setup, which, you know, work okay. I'd rather have some overhead speakers, but they've done the job so far. But I guess if I could go back, I wish I would have known about Atmos, or I wish I would have pre-wired a little more. At the very least, I wish I would have, pre-wired for some rear speakers, which I had to do later at a pretty substantial cost. We actually built this house, and I actually had the opportunity to pre-wire. I had like bare walls and like studs and stuff, pretty much very similar to what I have in my new home theater. I wish I would have just thought about, adding at least pre-wiring for some rear speakers in this room. At the time, I didn't think it was a very practical solution because the rear speakers would be very close to the rear row of seats, and I thought that really wouldn't work very well. And technically speaking, it is a little too close, but in practice, it's been fine. It is more ideal to be like at least 4 feet away from the rear speakers, 4 to 5 feet. You know, I'm about a couple of feet away, and honestly, it's been fine. I would suggest if you're in that boat, we're about 2 feet away, and I would recommend doing that instead of not having them at all, I guess. You know, it does work better than you would think. So this is my main seating position right here, as you can see, and that's, you know, this, obviously that's a rear speaker. It's pretty close. From my head to where my head would go and the back wall, it's about a foot. You know, add another 1.5 feet to this rear speaker. And same go, I mean, that one over there is a little farther away, but still, it's close. And I think the rear treatment that I did, the rear panel that I put in there actually does help a little bit with that for some reason. I also have some rear thicker panels here for like bass traps and stuff. I believe that kind of does help with these speakers being back there. Don't ask, I'm not a professional acoustic engineer or anything like that, so I'm not entirely sure why that helps, but I do think it does help. So yeah, pre-wiring, whenever you can, if you are building a theater from scratch, you know, try to think ahead, pre-wire, even if you're not going to get the speakers for a while, just go ahead and pre-wire as many as you can. Running wire when you don't have walls is a lot cheaper than you would think. It's a lot cheaper than doing it after the fact, because I have done that several times and in several rooms, and it is quite expensive. If you have to do it, they just have to cut little holes in your drywall here and there, and they can run wires using this special cable to feed it through. They do a pretty good job, and it isn't that bad, but you still have to patch it up, and you have to paint, and it is kind of more difficult to do. Another thing I should have considered, even though probably I would have stuck with my current configuration, is I might have considered doing differently, but this is a big might. Don't think I would have changed my mind. Is just consider doing only 1 row in this room. This room would have accommodated 1 row a lot better than 2. To be honest, I think I've had, it's pretty sad, but I think I've only had like filled every single seat in this room under 10 times. It's 99.9% of the time it's just me in this room. It's just, my wife isn't as big into movies as I am, so it's just typically me, and occasionally, you know, when a new kids movie comes out, it's me and like 2 kids in here, and that's it. So I have 8 seats, and it's just me typically, so it's not really worth, it really wasn't worth, I didn't need 8 seats, and I could have saved some money on 4 seats and just accepted the fact that, you know, 4 seats was enough. I could have just not even had like a step up in the back, or like a riser. You know, when I built this room, I thought that a normal like step up high riser, I think the original riser was 7 inches, would be enough. And yeah, it was enough, but you'd have to pretty much be sitting like straight up and not get too comfortable in the back row. But in order to get it working perfectly, I had to add another 7-inch riser in the back, which I bought on 4seating.com. I think I've mentioned that in another video, and it worked great. Now it's like gangbusters back there. It's awesome. You know, had I had only 1 row, these chairs theoretically could have been a little farther, maybe a foot or 2 away from the wall a little more, and these speakers would have been more effective. I could actually have lowered them to be more in line with the surround speakers there. So sometimes you just gotta like accept that your room isn't gonna support 2 rows and just go with 1, because it'll work better. And I didn't accept that. And not that this configuration does work really well. I guess the only thing is, you know, this front row is a little close to the screen, but again, my rear row is the main seating row in this room, and it sounds great in my opinion. But yeah, my should have considered going with 1 row, but probably wouldn't have. I probably would have done 2 rows anyway, let's face it. The 5th thing that I wish I would have done earlier was buy some really good subwoofers from earlier. When I first built this theater, I bought my Definitive Technology Super Towers here, because they had integrated 12-inch subs with like, you know, like 2 passive radiators built into each one. And when I bought these things, they were like the most awesome subs I've ever heard in my life, you know, because I had come from a room with just a 10-inch sub, earlier, and I thought that was amazing. But when I went to these, this was like an incredible upgrade. And if you are in the market for just a pair of super towers and you're limited on space and you don't want to have extra subs, these Definitive Technology super towers are amazing. And they are space savers, as you can just use the subs built in and they sound great, to be honest. You know, if you're a true enthusiast, you want to get some really good separate subs, which I do have with my SVS PB3000s, which are incredible. Every time I watch a movie with these things, they just blow my mind. How awesome, how hard they punch, and how deep they can go, and they just like effortlessly fill this room with enormous amounts of bass. So yeah, I wish I would have bought good subs earlier on, but again, this was a process. Sometimes you got to do it in stages. You can't just buy everything all at once because it's a lot of money. This hobby is very expensive, so there are limits that I had to do, and I guess that was. But I would, had I known what I know now, I would have gotten the subs earlier. Again, these are my SVS subs here. Absolutely incredible subwoofers if you're looking for some really effective subs. As far as what I'm concerned, I would probably never get anything above these SVSs, because the others are just, these I can actually carry. There are other subs that SVS makes that I would need help. These I can carry alone. I need to be able to move stuff by myself because my wife's not going to help me. I'm not going to just call a buddy of mine over and say, hey, I'd have to wait to do stuff. I like to do stuff myself. So one of the things I look for in a subwoofer is, can I carry it myself? And this is pretty much the limit of what I could do on my own. They weigh a lot, but I can do it on my own. Just maybe get a dolly or something that I have, and I can help move them around. Same goes for these, for my DefTech super towers here. I can carry these myself. They're still about 90 pounds, but again, it's doable. So those are my 5 things, but I do have one bonus thing that I want to talk about one bonus thing is I might have considered doing some better speaker placement in this room. So this is the height speaker on the right side of this room. And as you can see, it's quite aligned. It's aligned pretty well with the right channel speaker over there. It's okay. I don't think this one isn't so much the problem. I think it's more like this one, which is the less one, which is basically like, so look how close it is. You can almost have them on the same, it's really close to the rear speaker. So this is what I'm talking about. I wish I would have put it a little closer to be aligned more with this speaker, the left speaker. And that's pretty much the issue. It's just, this one's a little too close. This one I think is okay. But, yeah, that's pretty much what I'm talking about. That's my only one gripe, but it, again, still sounds pretty good. Sounds good in my opinion. The ceilings have studs, and you have to kind of get these ceiling speakers within the studs perfectly. You can't just have them wherever you want, because they need to go into certain areas, and there's different things you got to consider. But yeah, I wish I would have put them in a better spot, but they do still sound really good. Honestly, for my particular seat, they sound really good. Another thing to consider, back in the days before Atmos was a thing, surround speakers are supposed to be higher than they are now. Now, I think it is more conventional to have your surround speakers at a lower height, more at ear level, because back in the day, they recommended putting the surrounds a bit higher because they wanted to, add more ambiance to your home theater experience. And now in my current theater, I have a much lower to ear height. I think I have them about 6 inches above my head. These are about, I would say these are about 1.5 feet higher than head height, which would be this row here. Actually, I would have done it. I had these installed from current head height. They work a lot better after I added the new riser over here. After I added the new riser, they actually do work better, because I actually lifted the entire rear height higher, and also I'm also slightly closer to the rear surrounds as well. So, but yeah, the riser has helped with that. But yeah, those are the things I wish I would have done differently. So in lieu of a normal update video, this is what you're getting. So I hope you find this enjoyable. If you have any things you wish you would have done, please sound them off in the comments. And if you have any questions about this room, feel free to leave them in the comments. I also have a full video where I talk about this entire room in great detail. I'll put a link of that as well in the description and a card up there. I'll see you in the next one.